forestry incidents, that the army should have gone out to flush out that forest. Now, the NDA itself is not a combat arm of the Nigerian army or the armed forces. It's a training institution, and all it has is a battalion of soldiers that are armed and that are used for demonstration exercises when the students themselves have to practice engaging the enemy, like when they go out in the bush for exercise and so on. So in terms of manpower, the battalion is not adequately equipped to secure the perimeter of NDA. And one would have expected that really this kind of thing should not happen. But because of the situation that we're in, I think there's been an oversight in, first of all, not flushing out the forest and not beefing up security for the NDA. Mind you, a little bit down, a few kilometers down the road, it's also the Air Force Base, which has extended extensively backwards towards this same axis. So I think it's a serious wake-up call for the Defense Headquarters that oversees the training institutions like NDA and JAGI and so on, to consider positioning the right kind of manpower that will secure the place. But first of all, that forest needs to be cleaned out. Whoever is in there needs to be flushed out. It is a very, very embarrassing situation, and condolences to the families of those who died. And we pray that effort is being made to secure the officer who was abducted.
Let me go to you, Mr. Macri. Mr. Badebo mentioned that they have live ammunitions in that facility. Obviously, when they want to have shooting practices, they're live rounds. Could that have been the target of these bandits? Could they have been in need of firepower, and that's why they decided to hit that target?
Looking at the incident itself and going through what actually happened, I don't think they were targeting bullets or arms that they want to take. I think they were trying to prove a point. Because if you remember, we mentioned this when the Forestry College was attacked, that this thing is happening too near to call. And right now, we now have the manifestation where the bandits have actually tried it out. They must have been putting that institution under severe surveillance. And then, of course, they drove in there, because that tells you how long they have watched that gate. Because for somebody to wear army camo and then driving through with a vehicle through the main gate, it tells you that they've been observing the system. And if you observe the system in most of our military installation, you'll find out that the guards are not taking it seriously. Not seriously at all. A friend just told me that he just went down to one of the cantonments here in Lagos and drove through. In fact, he gave them some money. And then without even checking his vehicle or checking who he is or his ID, he drove inside. So what are we up to?
Really?
We are not coming to the realization that Nigeria is under attack.
Wow. It really begs the question of could it be that our armed forces have been overly stretched, or have they relaxed about this? Because, I mean, for this type of thing to be happening, and the reports you just gave about somebody just driving into a military cantonment, I mean, it's something that it's seen as, for us civilians, it's seen as a stronghold. It's a fortress. You cannot just drive into a military cantonment without, being checked or anything. So I want to ask, and I will ask Mr. Badebo the same question. Could there be, let me use a word that was used earlier on today. Could there be someone who has dropped the ball, or could all our armed forces have dropped the ball because this war is a bit beyond them?
Well, my friend Mr. Bakri dropped a very important point there. There's laxity amongst our men. The reason is fatigue. Everybody gets tired. You can't keep being at alert for 24 hours, 247. At some stage, you need a break. We need to take a leaf from United Nations. Our men, officers, men from the Nigerian Armed Forces and the police have consistent been deployed on United because they do extremely well. Now, what happens there is that they have a regular rotation. If you're in the combat area, you are withdrawn to a rest area, maybe for a weekend or so, every once in a while. And every 6 months, they actually get to come back to Nigeria for maybe a 2-week break before they go back. All funded, of course, by the United Nations. We have situations where we keep troops continuously for maybe a couple of years in the Northeast or whatever, and they are constantly on the threat. Now, when you come back to the barracks, because they're overstretched, the manpower in the barracks is really maybe not as it should be. Let me not go into further details there, but so you have a situation where, honestly, like Amakri said, if you go to some companies in Nigeria, like manufacturing companies, you'll be shocked at the kind of checks and everything you go through before you go in. And when you are leaving, there's a lot of screening. But when you go into some military installations, it's like he said, either you drive through. I know that if you go to Abuja, to Defense Headquarters, the complex where the service chiefs are, oh my God, you probably have to drop your car 2 kilometers away and go through all kind of screening to get in. But that is not happening in every military installation, and it should happen. And again, when you keep 2 men on guard for 24 hours or 12 hours, they do get tired. And so we must think about what rotation are we putting in there. So we need orientation both at the rear and in the front. It is for their own good. It will stop all these surprises happening. Amen.
Yeah. Let's talk about politicization of this whole war against terrorism, whether it be banditry, whether it be Boko Haram. We see, we've heard Governor Autumn speak this morning about the president's attitude towards dealing with the issue of banditry. We've also heard several other people complain about how this issue is being handled. Let's not also forget about the Katsina State governor who has resorted to self-help. And then there are those who are in opposition to Mr. President, bring some politics into it. Have we, one way or the other, over-politicized this issue of terrorism, so much so that it's somewhat made a mess of the situation? And it's not just, I've spoken to many experts, security experts, who have said it's not just about the guns and the bombs, but then, of course, there has to be a technological way of fighting this. Why have we not necessarily explored all the avenues we have at our disposal to fight this war instead of politicizing it?
I'll say it's because...
Okay.
Okay, I'll say it's because, the language that is coming from, first of all, the presidency is not consistent. Then you have too many people who are speaking. You have the Minister of Information, then you have 2 spokesmen for the president who speak at will. You have the Minister of Defense, you have the president, you have the governors. Why are we having a cacophony of voices talking about security and nobody's calling anybody to order? You see, there is very little that the spokesman for the president can say about security that will not run at cross purposes at what the military or the defense headquarters is doing. The defense headquarters itself has a spokesman. So why don't we have a situation where people limit themselves to what is really their business? And sometimes you find some of these spokesmen are speaking from a position of anger. When you speak from a point of anger, you mess yourself up. You mess the situation up. So this is the problem we're dealing with. We need a clear direction coming from somewhere. And then everybody, when I was in the service, you don't talk to the press, no matter how highly placed you are. Okay, there are certain people who are assigned that role to talk to the press, and so you find even commanders in the fields, regardless of their rank, talking to the press. You find soldiers now voicing their grievances for whatever reason. It's not done. So something really needs to be sorted out.
Mr. Makri, I want you to pick up from where he stopped. As he said, everybody seems to be speaking. It's some things that we've never ever seen or heard from our armed forces. We're beginning to see. I remember vividly, if I'm not mistaken, in 2016, if not 2017, when soldiers released a video of having to fight with moribund arms and being unable to match the firepower of the people that they were fighting, the terrorists. We've never seen that before. And so again, I'm asking, with all of this that's happening, how do we stop the politicization of this issue? Because he said that everybody's speaking, and so the army doesn't even know who to listen to or who they're taking orders from. Where do we go from here?
I think the Vice Marshal is very correct that there is a cacophony of voices, discordant voices, which are coming out from government. Because when you find out, it goes back to tell you also that there is need for some kind of, should I say, a plan, a strategic plan that covers everybody. Now we're talking about the service chiefs. When they changed them, they came in together and they've got some good strategic plan for the Northeast. And it is yielding results where you now have people surrendering. But we have left the other side open. And then, of course, some people see it as, even when Nigerians make suggestions, some people see it as an attack on the government. I don't think so. And then at the same time, we are asking people, the citizens, to put their hands on deck to, fight this, because you cannot fight this war all by the military themselves or the security agencies. You need the community, you need the civilian population, you need everybody, to be given support one way or the other, through either information or through some kind of physical support, logistical support, and stuff like that. But when it comes to giving the position of the military, I think they should even leave it. Because when I see sometimes people, divisional heads or battalion commanders even making press statements, and that is not helped by the social media, where everybody now can broadcast. But the discipline is there, whereby, you don't have more than one person who is supposed to represent that organization to be making statements that, represent that organization. So when we start talking and everybody's talking their own, people who are not even having a background in military affairs will be telling you that, the war will end in 3 months and stuff like that. I think that should be checked. Because remember, we are not the only ones listening. The bandits, the terrorists, they are all listening. And of course, with this cacophony, they know exactly which direction government is going.
Could this also mean that these guys, because I'm thinking, again, I'm not a military person, so I'm just thinking from a civilian standpoint and someone who's watching all of this play out. Could this have been a message of sorts that these bandits are sending to our troops and the country at large? Let's not also forget that Kaduna seems to be where there's a loss of abductions. It's happening every day. It's either a school or it's hospitals. It's happening every day. Could it be a message that these people are sending to not just the armed forces, but the government of the day, not just Mr. President, but even the governor of Kaduna State, Governor El-Rufai?
I think this message is directly directed to the governor himself. If you remember, we've discussed this before. when the governor himself was paying these bandits to stay away from his state, and they were, not attacking anybody, but every month they will come and they take money and they go away. And he was even known or reported to have said that he would send his child to the public school, and he did. Now, when he stopped paying, they started attacking. And then as they started attacking, he withdrew his son from the school. Now, 5,000 schools are closed down in Kaduna State alone. Because these guys are not relenting, because they felt that, okay, if you don't pay, then we're going to make this state ungovernable for you. And they've been busy attacking after attacking, And I like the position, because that's the position the governor should have taken earlier. Zero tolerance to ransom payments. Because when you continue paying them, what are you doing? You are enforcing them to go and use the money and come back at you. But like we said, if you are not paying ransom, then be ready to fortify the security forces so that use that money you are supposed to use for ransom. Fortify them to go after. We know where they are. Afaka is there. If they carry out a military operation and say, yes, we are going to flush these people out, I am very, very sure the Nigerian military is up to the task and they can do it. So I think it's a situation that we have to go back to the drawing board. I would say that it's a wake-up call, because we've given this call before. And if we continue, we will be surprised the next place they are going to enter. So I think let's do something about this now.
Mr. Guadebo, I'm interested to, because he's asked a very interesting question, he's rather painted an interesting scenario that if there's a willingness to go into Afaka and flush these people out, they can. So my question to you, even though I know that you're no longer serving, is what's stopping the army from flushing these guys out? We spend so much money fighting terrorism. We fought Boko Haram for more than a decade, and here we are with another hydra-headed monster. What's the challenge?
The challenge is the direction from the leadership. You can see we are still fighting with nomenclature in that, somebody doesn't want the people to be called the right names. So we've coined bandits, we've coined terrorists, we've coined all kinds of names. But really, we have to call them the right names. And we have to deal with them decisively. The Nigerian army can take on these people if the wherewithal comes from the top. I believe that it is not coming. For instance, the press release that came out of NDA this morning was not what I was expecting. It was too tame. I expected that if this thing happened at 1:30 a.m., before 6 a.m. today, a few truckloads of armed soldiers should have moved into that forest to clear the place out. But it was, I'm sure Nigerians that effort was being made to put everything together to recover the officer.
But do you think maybe the arms of do you think that maybe the arms of our troops are tied, especially the men at the top? Do you feel that their hands are tied, that they would probably, because I don't think that they do not know what to do, if these same people, if this same group of soldiers do so well when they go for peacekeeping and they're like the best south of the Sahara, why is it so difficult to go into a forest that is within the confines of our country to deal with this bandits or Boko Haram? What exactly? Could it be that their hands are tied?
I'll tell you that, for instance, if for some reason Mr. President declares a state of emergency in one state, the formula is simple. He finds one serving or retired general and makes him the administrator of that state, and immediately things changed. We saw what happened in Plateau State.
But this is a democracy. Can we really do that? Does the Constitution allow for that? Because when you say it's a state of emergency, every democratic power, is disregarded, and it means that you're calling for a military rule in that state.
I'm using that as an example. To tell you that in the same case, if somebody is made a task force commander for a small area, no matter how small the area is, we had situation when we had task forces going after, smugglers and things like that in the past, people who are selling cars in Lagos, if you go back like 20, 25 years ago. And it sometimes was as young as a major, a captain that was in charge of the task force with some men. And they will go out and they'll do what they needed to do. But the problem we're having is that we have task forces. With this last service chiefs, we saw where the Air Force and the Army were at contests to show who was more active and so on. With this new service chiefs, they came in and they said they were going to work together. And we've seen it in the Northeast. And that's why I'm saying that even with all the other areas, you just need to find a force where the man is put in charge and he's getting his orders either directly from his service chief or the defense headquarters. And he moves and does what he needs to do. This has not been done, and I think this is what we need to put in place now to begin to see that yes, something is actually done. That task force commander would, and I don't know if it's still happening, but we've always had this problem where our operations are not properly funded. That's why you see the commanders that they're always going to the governor is always being with them, and so on and so forth. So their funding is also at cross purposes. Okay, if you want something done, you release the funds and you allow the men, like the commander, to get his resources straight from either the chief of defense staff or the Ministry of Defense. Okay. So whether the governor is in support or not is not the issue there.
Okay. Finally, Mr. Macri, you have the last question tonight. Still talking about leadership here and clarity from our leaders, and I'm putting Mr. President and all the governors in this the Northwest on the table here. Do they seem a bit distracted to you? I know that you might say yes or no, but do they seem a bit distracted? Because what we see is governors going at each other's necks because political parties are gearing up for their congresses, they're gearing up for 2023, but then their backyards seem to be on fire and they seem a bit distracted. So might we be seeing much more of these kinds of hits if our governors do not display some form of clarity and leadership? And Mr. President, he's part of this mix. If we do not see a display of clarity and leadership in a few months to come, in fact, even tomorrow, are we likely to see more of these kinds of hits happen?
It is very, very unfortunate at this time, whereby we have our politicians busy thinking of the next election. And, when you come to think about it, why are you in government? It is very, very clear. The fundamental principles, in our constitution for government is for the safety of lives and property of Nigerians. But they are busy. And because they are very busy now, many of them are not even thinking about what is going on in all those areas. Because you have the Northeast, people are happy that they are surrendering, but the bandits are striking in the Northwest. And then what are you going to do about it? There are agitations in the South. So all these things are going on. And I think the president, if I have to advise him, is to call everybody together and tell them, look, let us solve this problem first before we get to 2023. Because the way we are going, I don't see people even coming out when bandits are pursuing you around to come out to go and cast a vote. I don't think it's possible. So Our leaders have to redirect, their stand, especially the political leaders, the governors, and the parties, because if we don't solve this problem, if we don't fix this, we will not have a country to rule, because it's right in our face now.
Well, former Air Vice Marshal Femi Gbadebo, Dennis Amakri, former Deputy DSS Director, thank you very much for speaking with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for
having us.
All right. Well, thank you all for staying with us. We'll take a short break now, and when we return, Benue State Governor Samuel Ortom threatens to take legal actions against the federal government's grazing routes and reserves policy. We'll get to find out about the legality behind that. Stay with us.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamude Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on PlusTvAfrica as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamude Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
There is no drawing the line. The cancel culture is wrong. Call out is better.
General public perceives it as His Excellency. Her Excellency. What have you done that is excellent?
Yes. We've been so battered over the years that we've lost our sense of demanding for our rights.
Where you see young girls come out to say, I was raped, there's this attack, this silent attack. Some people would like to keep quiet, but you hear some people come out to say, are you sure?
Did you ask yourself, on the average, how many people will come to this place? Did you ask yourself, when they get there, what is the process for accreditation? You're trying to give money to what? 5,000 people, 200,000 people, you don't even know.
These guys are going to pilfer these funds and justify it with this fruitless exercise. It's very annoying to see that even despite all the criticism for this conditional cash transfer, schemes, Nigeria has continued to do worse, on the poverty index.
Hello and welcome. It's Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime. Nimasa This Week is brought to you by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Statutorily mandated to ensure that there is regulation and promotion of matters affecting our waters. NIMASA bears responsibility for search and rescue, shipping development, and ship registration.
NIMASA This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
This medal has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
We now start hearing the shoot of gun.
Whatever I've done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
Governor Samuel Ortam of Benue State has threatened to drag the federal government to court if President Muhammadu Buhari's administration insists on implementing its grazing routes and reserves policy. The governor said the Land Use Act was explicit on the issue of land ownership and the management in the country. He stressed that any attempt to subvert his right as a governor through the creation of a non-existent cattle route and reserves would be challenged in court. He called on lieutenants of Mr. President to advise him properly on issues so that things would work better for the country, pointing out that insisting on cattle routes in the 21st century, when states had resorted to enacting laws, was retrogressive. Well, joining us to discuss this is Michael Gusa. He's the State Attorney General in Benue State, and of course is the Justice Commissioner, okay? And we're being joined by Ladikwa Johnson, who is also a legal practitioner. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. I hope that Mr. Gusa can hear us. It's good to have you here.
Thank you. Good evening.
I watched the clip of the Benue State governor talking early this morning on another TV station. And he was very explicit as to, his demands and what he thought of Mr. President. But when a governor says he's going to take the federal government to courts, one would wonder if, he has any legal backing whatsoever.
I believe he does, and it is a smart thing to do in the present circumstances, because it seems that the federal government under this president is hell-bent on either first was Ruga and ranching, and now you understand he's looking at the so-called existing grazing routes. Whichever way, the best, I think, and the smartest step the governor could take is to go to court to determine whether the law that existed before independence, whether it was subsumed under the Constitution, and whether the rights, to look at the competing rights of the pastoralists with the farmers and those who actually own the land. These are things that have to be looked at. It is not so simplistic. The federal government cannot just do what it seems to want to do. And then when you take everything in a holistic manner, the way the country is at the moment, the tensions, and what have you, is best, instead of making it a political battle, it's best to look at the legal, from the legal perspective.
Why do you think, before I go to the Attorney General of Benue State, why do you think that the federal government is so, in your words, hell-bent to recreate these grazing routes? Why do you think so?
There's no reason to hide it. Since we've had clashes between farmers and the nomads or the pastoralists, the government has always spoken and come down on the side of the herdsmen, of the pastoralists. So I think the government is trying to say that, okay, let's see how they can sustain and keep their lifestyle, which is grazing and going from area to area. That's what they're looking at. But
states have outrightly banned, especially southern states have outrightly banned this.
That's why we say that let it go to the courts. Let the courts determine. Can you stop someone from moving around in a federation? That's one question. Two, a person moving around, grazing, going on other people's lands, is it legal? So there are issues that have to be determined, and I think Governor Ortam has it right. And since his Attorney General is on, he can tell us. I think they should go to court.
Mr. Gusa, it's good to have you join us. I'm interested in knowing, because I'm guessing that you will be filing this suit on behalf of the Benue State government. But my question, just as I asked him, because I listened to your principal this morning on TV, and he spoke he sounded very certain that the president obviously has an agenda of sorts, and that's why he is bent on going ahead with this grazing route. But why do you think that your governor is holding this position, and what exactly has pushed you and your principal to take this position of going to court and taking the federal government to court?
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you very much for having me in this evening. I want to say that I am 100% in support of what His Excellency, the Governor of Benue State, has said, just like you've narrated. His Excellency, the Governor Samuel Otom, is one man that believes in the rule of law and due process. And so when he came as Governor of Benue State in 2015, he met these killings upon killings in Benue State by the headers. And so he now thought of what will be done to bring a check, and so that his people will now live in peace. He sponsored this bill, which has been signed into law now, ranches, open grazing prohibition and ranches establishment law. And when it went to the Benue State House of Assembly, a public hearing was conducted. All the major stakeholders who felt concerned came and gave their inputs as to what they would want this law to be. At the end of the day, His Excellency the Governor assented to this law. Even though that was assented to in May 2017, he still gave a period of time, because it was a new law, so that everybody that was concerned can adopt to the new law. This was aimed at bringing peace in Benue State. And I want to say that you know that by virtue of the provisions of the Land Use Act, the land is vested in the governor of a state, who holds it in trust for the people of the state. Mm-hmm. And so, now that we have this law in place, when they brought the issue of Ruga some 2 years back, we went to court, and the court declared the process that was initiated by the federal government as a nullity, and that the land is owned by the Benue State governor, who holds it in trust for the people of the state. And so, federal government cannot now come and impose a decision to come and establish Ruga in the state. So that has gone. They have not even appealed against that decision. And so that is the position that we have in Benue State. So what am I saying in essence? We have a law here that forbids open grazing in the state. We have a law here that has repealed the law that created grazing reserves in the state. And so, and together with all the instruments that were made therein. And so for the federal government to now come and say they will come and acquire land in Benue State to give it to these headers who have been killing our people, who have made our people to be in IDP camps for the past 6 or 7 years, which is a private business. I think that is totally unacceptable, and we are not going to accept that. The entire people of Benue State are not going to accept that. We are going to resist that move, and the only way we can do is by going to court to seek redress against the injustice that the federal government wants to come and establish these reserves in Benue State.
But if the federal government is insistent on this, and the president had given the Attorney General of the Federation a go-ahead to take a look at these grazing routes, do you not think that maybe the presidency has done some feasibility studies and they have come to a conclusion that that might be a wholesome way to attack this issue of banditry?
Well, the whole world will hear if it is within the powers of the president to take ancestral lands that belongs to the people of Benue State and give to his kinsmen, who are the Fulanis, who are coming in from Fudajalo and all over the place, all over Africa, to come and take this land and give them. The whole world will hear, and that is why His Excellency the Governor insisted that
I'm so sorry to talk
court.
over you. I'm so sorry to talk over you. So you believe that the president is doing this in the interest of his people, who you call the Fulanese or the Nomads. This is what you think.
What else? What else? You know that livestock business in Nigeria is private business. They are doing it as a business. They are doing it as their private business. And here in Benue State, we are crop farmers. We have our farms. We are farming on our land. And then you now want to come and take over this land and give it to another tribe. That is totally unacceptable.
Interesting. I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Johnson, because the Attorney General seems to be clear on their stance as to what they want. But looking at it wholesomely, and the same question I asked, do you think maybe the federal government thinks that their plan would work? Because they have, in Benue State, repealed a law, and they have also put another law in place that bans open grazing, and they gave ample time, according to him, for people to adjust. But it seemed to have not solved the situation. So maybe, could this plan by the presidency, I'm just asking, the look on your face says it, but could it be that maybe it would be a wholesome way to deal with the situation?
From the presidency's point of view, yes. They're trying to look for a way to ensure that grazing still takes place in one form or the other. And that's why they said, let's look at the 368 grazing reserves that were there sometime, God knows how many years ago, and let's look at them.
What about those ones that have been built upon? What if a refinery is now built on that grazing reserve?
Now
what if we have train tracks on those reserves?
That is exactly why I said that they'll be tied up in court for quite a long time. Because even if you're allowed to do it, then each one will be determined on its merits. The particular land in issue, as an example, is it, as the Attorney General says, ancestral land? Is it family land? Was it established? The fact that you grazed over the land, you understand, you'd come in, go out and whatever, does not mean it is yours. Doesn't grant you an easement over the land. You may have been trespassing. Now, the fact that they didn't prosecute you for trespassing at that time doesn't mean they can't do that now. So there are many things that will be taken into account. And that's why I said what the governor of Benue State has said is a step in the right direction. It will sort the problem out. It will take quite a while, but it will sort the problem out. Now, unfortunately, this is not the time when the presidency should be insistent on such a thing.
So you're saying it makes him culpable? It makes it seem like he has a hand in the unrest that's...
It's not that it makes it...
Are you saying that he's giving these so-called bandits or herders the upper hand?
He's giving the impression, the average citizen will look at it. It's not politics. It's the impression that the presidency has given that they are backing the herdsmen or the pastoralists, whatever you want to call them, they're backing them. Because first they tried with the Ruga, they've tried several things, you know. So people keep looking at it and saying, oh, you just keep coming back with this thing. You understand? So unfortunately for him, I believe that is the view of majority of Nigerians.
Mr. Gusau, my last question is to you. Before we started having these clashes, we've always had these nomads amongst us. They've lived with us. They've grazed, you know, for years. At what point did it become a problem? Because now this is, yes, we know that guns have been introduced into the equation, and so it changes everything. And people are being killed on their farmlands and buried in shallow graves. But whatever happened, where did it go wrong that at this point, even the farmers in Benue State are saying we're standing behind the governor and we do not want to give our lands to be grazed on? Again, it's a two-pronged question. Mr. President does have his own some form of ranch when he goes home. Every time he goes for a holiday in his hometown, we see his ranch. So it really makes me wonder why ranching is not in the cards for Mr. President.
Well, that is the problem that we also have here in Benue State. Because the herders that we used to know will come with their cattle, and then the highest thing they will carry, or they will be carrying, will be their sticks. to control the cattle. But now, the herdsmen that you are seeing them with AK-47. And sometimes you don't even see them with livestock. You don't even see them with cattle. And so their agenda now is different from what was obtainable long before now. Now they are coming with an agenda. They are coming to take over this land. They are coming to kill our people so that they can now take over their land and settle here. And we are saying that no. The headers that we used to know.
Conclusion. Have you had a conversation? Have you had a conversation with any of these people for them to tell you? Because I'm trying to understand where you got this conclusion from, that they want to take over your land, kill your people, and take over your land. How is that even possible?
Well, what is happening here in Benue State? Most of the places that they have sacked these communities from their ancestral homes, if you go there now, they have destroyed their graves, they have cut down their economic trees, they have destroyed their houses, and they are settled on those lands now, as I talk to you.
Interesting. And what's the government doing about it?
Well, that is why we keep hearing our governor complain. Come to Benue State, you see more than 2 million people who are living in IDP camps. They have been ransacked from their ancestral homes. And you know that the state alone has limited powers. All this while, His Excellency the Governor has been managing even to sustain these IDPs in these IDP camps. It has not been easy. And I want to tell you that since this has happened, the federal government has never intervened by way of saying that let us see how we can provide security for these people to go back to their ancestral homes and continue with their farming activities. Federal government has not come to Benue State to say that, look, these people have been in IDP camps and this is what we are supporting. The 10 billion that the vice president came and promised the people of Benue State when he visited, up to today, we are not seeing a penny from that money that he came and promised. Well, so I don't need a soothsayer to tell me that they want to take over this land.
Wow. Well, Michael Guza is the Benue State Attorney General and Ladipo Johnson is a legal practitioner. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of this conversation. Hopefully we will sometime in the future have the governor on this show to tell us extensively what exactly is going on in Benue State. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Thank you all for staying with us. We'll take a short break, and when we return, I will be saying goodbye. I hope you've enjoyed all our conversations tonight. We'll see you tomorrow on Plus Politics as we tackle other political issues. I am Mary Anna Cohn. Do have a good evening.
Most people know the common symptoms of the original COVID-19 variant, which are shortness of breath, cough, fever, sore throat, loss of taste or smell. It is important, however, to note that there are new variants of the coronavirus which are caused by mutations of the virus. The original Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and now the Delta variant. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, the Delta variant, also known as B.1.617.2, can spread more easily as it has mutations on the spike protein that makes it easier for it to infect human cells. This means people may be more contagious if they contract the virus and more easily spread it to others. It is 50% more contagious than the Alpha variant, which is already 50% more contagious than the original coronavirus first identified